Welcome to another edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. Glad to be with you for another episode. This one I'm going to go through CDs mostly, but one rare album. I'm going to go over my REO Speedwagon collection. My favorite band named after a fire truck. The only band I know named after a fire truck, actually. REO Speedwagon are an example of a band, kind of like why I did my Cheap Trick episode. They've got a lot of albums. Only a few of them were really big albums. Some of them very, very hard to find, and I'm the type of person that usually likes to complete collections. So it took me a long time to get all my REO albums, and I eventually did. So I'll start off with the one record that I've got. This is one of the rarest albums in my collection. This is actually the very first REO Speedwagon record. It's from 1971, and this is a Canadian issue on Epic Records, CBS. It actually doesn't actually have a year on it, which to me is kind of another indication of just how old this is, but you can see here it's CBS Records Canada. I've only ever seen this once, and it's the one time I have it. You're looking on the back cover here and you're thinking to yourself, where's Kevin Cronin? Well, Kevin Cronin wasn't on the first REO Speedwagon album, and matter of fact, there's a few here that he's not on. We'll look at the vinyl itself for this. Just a plain white sleeve, at least on this copy. This vinyl actually looks like it's in really good shape. This has a newer Epic logo on it, which tells me that this might be actually a reissue. They must have reissued this sometime maybe in the late 70s, early 80s when REO started to become more famous. So now we'll go into my CD collection. It's kind of unique because the first 6 REO Speedwagon albums, none of them were particularly easy to find on CD. And how it works is I actually had numbers 2, 3, and 6. Almost impossible to find the individual discs anymore, but luckily a company in the UK called BGO, or Beat Goes On Records, reissued several classic albums in 2-disc, basically 2 albums in one. And the early REO Speedwagon albums were some of those, so that's the reason that I have these ones on disc. But there is a little bit of overlap, so we'll go over that with you now. This contains the first REO Speedwagon album, which I just showed you on vinyl, and REO 2. I won't really go much into REO 2 because I have that as a standalone CD, but this is the reissue of it. So I bought this in order to get the first REO Speedwagon album on CD. So here's the booklet that comes with it. There's a write-up in here about the first 2 albums by a writer named Alan Robertson. It's a double CD, so it's got the I'm surprised that they didn't just put this on one disc, but maybe the 2 together were just a little bit too long. This is REO 2, the second REO Speedwagon album. Came out in 1972. This is a US CBS edition. This album actually does have Kevin Cronin on it, as you can see on the back cover. So he was on this one. And this is just a usual Epic CD. And I won't even bother showing you most of these ones because they're very familiar if you grew up buying CDs in the 80s. Not a lot came with this, but the front and back of the booklet, and just a little bit of credits here. So that's REO 2. Third REO Speedwagon album, Ridin The Storm Out. It's a classic song. Kevin Cronin does not appear on this album. The singing on this album is done by this guy here, a guy named Mike Murphy. I don't think was very good. Anyway, so the classic title song is on this album, but the version that you're probably most familiar with is from an upcoming live album with Kevin Cronin. So we'll see. Not much inside of here. Like a lot of early issues of the CBS CDs, there's not really a lot in here for credits. Fourth REO Speedwagon album is called Lost in a Dream. I ended up getting yet another double CD collection from BGO that had Ridin The Storm Out and Lost in a Dream on it. Like I said, I already had Lost in a Dream, but as I explained, I couldn't find Lost in a Dream by itself on CD. You can get them on eBay, but they will cost you, so I settled myself for this. I did, however, online find an original front and back cover, which I printed off. So that's the cover of Lost in a Dream. That's what the side would look like, and that's what the back cover would look like. Next up, one more BGO 2 CD set for the albums. This Time We Mean It, and one just simply called REO. Came out in 75 and 76 respectively. And This Time We Mean It was again with Mike Murphy on vocals. I still had him as lead singer. So another write-up inside of here. By the way, that's an actual REO, Ransom Eli Olds Speedwagon. And so bought that to get This Time We Mean It. By the way, none of these early REO Speedwagon albums were all that successful, but if you're an Eagles fan, on This Time We Mean It, they do the song Out of Control, which is a Henley Fry Nixon composition, which also appeared on the Eagles' Desperado album. A bit of trivia for you. So next up, this came out in 1976. It's called REO, even though it wasn't their first album, obviously. Kevin Cronin returned and remained this time as lead vocalist. This is a US CBS issue of this album. This brings back the nice price sticker. I owned a lot of cassettes and own a lot of CDs with the nice price on it. This is a later issue CD. I'll only show you because if you notice there, the Epic logo is different. It's not the usual Epic logo, or the classic one, I guess you could say. Very little inside of this CD, as is the case for a lot of old CBS CDs. The first really big REO Speedwagon album, even though they hadn't scored a hit single, was this live album that came out in 1977 called Live You Get What You Play For. And this is the CBS version. Usual CBS look to it. Front and back. And a little bit more for credits inside of here. Band photo, song titles, some thank yous. More thank yous. One of my favorite album titles of all time. I love a good pun, and it doesn't get any better than You Can Tune a Piano, but you can't tune a fish. I love it. This is from 1978. This is a CBS version, American, and there's a little bit more inside of this for credits. This was a big album for them, or it was a bigger album. They were gaining in popularity. It contained two songs that get played in the radio, classic rock radio a lot still to this day, Roll with the Changes and Time for Me to Fly. And this has some lyrics in here. I don't believe it has lyrics to all the songs, which is kind of strange, but they end off the 70s for REO Speedwagon with the album 9 Lives. So they have like a cat theme going on here. This is a US CBS version. Continuing the cat motif on the back. Some credits there and a breakdown of who does what on each song, which doesn't make a lot of sense because mostly they did what on each song. Some pictures inside here. So as the CDs go along, you'll notice that there's basically more stuff inside them. So now we're at 1980, where two REO Speedwagon albums came out. The first one was this. A Decade of Rock and Roll, 1970 to 1980. And this is a compilation of songs from the first album up to 9 Lives. And this is a US version. This originally came in one of the double CD cases, but I condensed it down to this single case. And a booklet that came inside of it. There's actually a pretty good write-up in here about each song and each album, each phase of the career of REO Speedwagon thus far. And some more of this on the back. Now, of course, 1980 also brought the biggest REO Speedwagon album to this date, High Infidelity. This is a huge album. If you saw my 8-track episode, I own this on 8-track. This one here's the first Canadian CD I have. This came from Columbia House at one point. So it's got the typical Canadian CBS box look to it. This album sold a ton of copies. The CD, I'm going to show you the CD because it actually looks a little bit different, probably because it was such a big album. It's actually got a little bit different printing on there, not much. Inside the album, not much here. The follow-up album to High Infidelity, I actually like quite a bit, even though it was considered to be a bit of a letdown. This is Good Trouble. This came out in 1982. This is a US edition. Back cover. If the back cover looks a little faded, it's because one time I had this section of my CD collection, unfortunately, got a little sunlight, so kind of lightened them up a little bit. I'm not too happy about that, but anyway, wear and tear. So that's what the full front and back cover would have looked like. And inside, and this has all of the lyrics, I believe, for the first time. Not counting any reissues. I don't have any deluxe issues of these albums other than those double ones. Okay, the next REO Speedwagon album. This is 1984. Wheels Are Turnin'. This is an American version. This was another big album for REO Speedwagon. Can't Fight This Feeling came off of this album. And this is one of those booklets that sometimes a little hard to get at. So front and back cover. There you go, up here, and the lyrics. (1987) Life as We Know It. This isn't an easy CD to find. I found this one used. This is a US version. Back cover there, Kevin Cronin sporting a frightening mustache. That phase didn't last long, actually. So this one has lyrics and credits in it. Kind of look like that. (1988) REO Speedwagon, the inevitable greatest hits album comes out. It's just simply called The Hits. This is a Canadian version. It's on Columbia House. This too has some serious, was exposed into the sun way too long. I am normally more adept at that. This is what the actual back cover of the CD would have looked like. The American one would have looked like this on the actual outside back cover. Picture of the group, a little bit of credits. A little write-up. A little write-up on the group from British writer Malcolm Dome. And basically a breakdown of the songs. The last studio album that REO Speedwagon did for Epic CBS Records came out in 1990. It was not a successful album. I actually quite like it. It's got a little peculiar title, which is a literal description of what's on the cover. It's called The Earth, a Small Man, His Dog, and a Chicken. Wow. Alright, so this is a US version. Like I said, this album was not successful. I really liked it. I thought it had some good songs on it. This is what the CD itself looked like. A little bit different. And show you the inside booklet here, the back cover. And basically it's just got the credits and the lyrics. And a sequel compilation called The Second Decade of Rock and Roll, 1981 to 1991, that came out in 1991. This is actually a Canadian version of this. Basically kind of winds down the second half of REO Speedwagon's career. And the hits had just come out about 3 years previous, so any of the songs that were on the hits, they're presented here in different forms, usually live. There's a lot of live songs on here, but there's also things like Live Every Moment, which was a single from Wheels Are Turning that didn't make the hits CD. This is what the CD itself looked like. Now on the back here, even though this was 91, this is REO Speedwagon today, and this particular lineup is still REO Speedwagon today. There's quite a good write-up on here, along with some magazine articles, some little clips from chart magazines, concert ads, and it talks about each of the songs, where they came from. In the back here, there's sort of a family tree of the band member changes. So there was quite a long hiatus before there was anything new from REO Speedwagon. And then in 1996 this came out. This is Building the Bridge, and this was on Castle Records, which was a UK label, but they opened up a US division very briefly, although I think they went out of business shortly after this came out. So this album was not very successful. Basically, lyrics, some credits. I mean, of course, there's a lot of compilations that have come out, and I don't have all of them, and I don't plan on getting all of them. There's also been some live albums and DVDs that come out, but I'm kind of selective. 1999, this came out on Epic Legacy, Sony Music, called The Ballots. Had three new songs on it. And again, it had a write-up in it of just talking about the origins of the songs. And so one of the new songs, Just For You, is quite good. So far, unless you count the Christmas album, which I don't have, the most recent REO Speedwagon studio album is this one called Find Your Own Way Home. This came out in 2007. They just put it out themselves. It says it's just Speedwagon. There's no label written on it per se. This album was also issued in a deluxe edition, which contained some bonus, like a bonus DVD, I believe, of them doing the High Infidelity album in its entirety. This came out with an XM radio advertisement. This was a Walmart exclusive when it came out originally. Kind of neat. CD itself has like a compass thing going on here. Back cover. And the lyrics and credits. I'll open that up. This picture of the band there. And there's one other thing that I got. Like I said, there's lots of compilations. Sony came out with an Essential series, and I don't have a lot of those because I don't need a lot of them. There's an Essential Journey, for instance. Talked about the Essential Cheap Trick. I bought this. This is the Essential REO Speedwagon 3.0. This originally came out as a 2 CD set in 2004. This that I'm holding in my hand is from 2009. And I got it because it has a third disc of songs on it. And one of the songs, song 4, is called Wherever You're Going, It's All Right. This song is it's a studio recording. It was never on any of REO Speedwagon's albums. And it actually appeared on the soundtrack to the movie Goonies. And I'd never had it in any form before. So I thought, if I'm going to get this, I'll get this version. And some neat packaging in here. It's worth looking at. And there's a booklet in here that talks about the history of the band. That's my REO Speedwagon CD collection. And thank you for watching yet another edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Keep tuned for more episodes.